Hey everyone, it's Kaylee here for Soy and Shea, and thank you so much for joining me for today's video, which is a Patreon design challenge one. Now for this month I got pretty brave and I asked my patrons just to list one ingredient that they'd like to see me use, and depending which one came out of the drawer would depend what product I would make with it. Now I put everyone's suggestion into a soapy jug, and the one I drew out came from Anne Egan, who runs Burnett Bath & Body. Now she is only just starting out, but I have left links down in the description box so you can go and check her out. And she wanted to see me use fig extract powder, which comes from Off the New Directions website. Now this ingredient was pretty tricky because not only is it heat sensitive, it is also pH sensitive. In fact, it is so sensitive it needs to be in a product which has a pH of 5 or less, and there's not that many products out there that actually do have that pH level that I really wanted to make. So I had a little bit of a think, and this month over on the Patreon page I was releasing an emulsified sugar scrub recipe, which is this one here. So I have got the basic emulsified sugar scrub recipe available, and then I decided to do a tweak to this and add in some fig extract powder as well. So in today's video we're going to go and see how I make the tweaked version of this emulsified sugar scrub. But if you are interested in this recipe, the recipe is available on the Patreon page at both the $5 and the $10 level for limited times only. So check out the description box to see how long the recipe is actually available for, and it is also available to purchase on the Pimp My Soap webpage. And when you either purchase it or come and join over on the Patreon page, you will get the basic emulsified sugar scrub recipe, and you'll also get the tweaked version, which we're going to go and make now. Let's go. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is weigh out our emulsifying waxes and our oils and butters into a heat-safe container. And I like to use a bain-marie system for melting down my oils and butters so I don't end up overheating them. First thing going in is the all-important emulsifying wax. I prefer to use Ceteryl Alcohol Ceterith 20. If you do choose to change the emulsifying wax, it is best to do a small test batch to see what it does to the viscosity, texture and stability. And then along with this emulsifying wax we're adding in some stearic acid, which is a co-emulsifier, and it is also going to help add a little bit of texture and thickness to this particular scrub. Next up we're going to add in our oils and butters, and you can have a good play around with the oils and butters that go into the recipe. Just as long as you're keeping almost like for like. So if it's a liquid oil, replace it with a liquid oil. I'm using shea butter in mine. Now I am going to add my shea butter into the heat part of this, and although there is a little bit of worry about shea butter going grainy when it is overheated and then set up again, because we're making a scrub that's really not going to be too much of a concern. So I'm adding it in with the hot oils and butters. Normally what I would do with my shea butter is melt down all the other oils and butters, and once this comes up to temperature then I put my shea butter in to gently melt. But as I said, it's not really that important for this particular recipe. Next I'm going to add in some MCT oil or fractionated coconut oil. I need to put that one into a smaller bottle to make it easier. And then finally I'm going to add in some castor oil as well, because this puts a really nice protection barrier over the skin. Now to protect all those oils and butters I am adding in some natural vitamin E. And then with this particular recipe, this is part of the tweak, I want to add some natural colorant into this one. So I have got some madder root powder here, and I'm going to add it into this heat phase just to give it a real chance to add that little bit of color. And I'm going for madder root to get that sort of blushing pink sort of color. Now you could always add mica into this. I just decided I wanted to go for a bit more of a natural approach this time round. So now that we've got everything in here, I'm going to go and put it into the bain-marie. Alright, so I already have my water coming up to heat here. I'm just going to pop that in. Make sure my water doesn't come too far up the side so it could splash when it does boil, but just high enough to make sure this melts. So I'm going to leave it sit here until everything is completely melted down. It's going to come up to a temperature of about 70 to 80 degrees. Then we'll take it off the heat and we'll do the next step. Now before I can add in the rest of these ingredients, I do need to allow this to cool down a little bit. There's two reasons behind it. The first is that one of the extracts I am using, the fig extract, is actually heat sensitive, so we don't want to add that in here too hot. And the other reason being is that the exfoliant I am going to be using primarily in this blend is sugar, and if you heat sugar it will melt down. So if you add your sugar in too hot, it's going to melt down those sugar granules and your scrub's not going to be as scrubby as you would like it to be. So by allowing this to cool down a little bit, we'll be able to get more of a scrub out of our sugar because it doesn't melt down. So once this has come down to temperature, I'll bring you back and we'll add in the rest of our ingredients. Alright, so this has cooled down to about 42 degrees Celsius, which is about 108 degrees Fahrenheit. So now we're ready to add in the next lot of ingredients. To help things disperse a little bit more, I'm going to add my liquid ingredients in first. The first one I'm going to put in is some preservative. Now, although this doesn't have any water in it, it is going to be used in an environment that has water, and people are likely to put wet hands into this scrub. So I'm adding in just a little bit just to make sure that we're protected against any water that may come off people's hands into this scrub. Give it a bit of a mix in, and then I'm going to add in my fragrance, and I'm going to be using Island Escape in this one. I just thought it was perfect to have combined with that fig, so let's get that one in. So now that I've got that in, I'm going to add in my fig powder because I think it's going to dissolve a lot easier without having all the exfoliants in here. I do only have a small container to start with just to see how things went. So let's add this one in. So you can see that has dissolved down beautifully, but there are a few little grains in here, which again, I'm not bothered about because this is a scrub after all. But fig powder is generally water soluble, not oil soluble, but I did decide to include it in this because of the fact that we're going to use this with water, and once this scrub comes into contact with water, it is going to turn that fig powder into that fig juice and give us all those lovely skincare benefits. So now that that is all mixed in, it's time to add in our exfoliants. So the first one I'm going to add in is some poppy seeds, and I went for the poppy seeds more so because of the sort of seeds that you get when you look at a fig, so I kind of wanted them to be reminiscent of that. So let's get our poppy seeds in. And then we're going to add in our sugar, and I'm just using regular white sugar in this one, but you can use different grades of sugar to get different sorts of exfoliating effects out of it. So we've got all of that in. Let's give it a good mix. So I've given everything a really good mix. Make sure that my sugar is all nicely broken up in here. Now I'm going to be honest and say that Madder Root powder did not give me the blushing pink colour I had hoped for. So I am also going to add in a bit of this Alkanet root powder, which will hopefully put a little bit of a pinky tinge in here. I just really want this one to have more of a natural colorant than putting in mica. Alright, so that Alkanet root powder has given it the colour that I was kind of actually really chasing. That is looking really good. We've got no big lumps of sugar in there. It is all nicely coated. So let's get these into some pots. Now, if you've watched any of my previous Bath and Body videos, you will know that I don't tend to pot things up when it is still warm. However, with this particular recipe, because it is still really nice and fluid and it's going to set up a little bit firmer, it is easier to pot this now before it actually cools down. So I'm just going to very gently pour it into my containers here. It smells really good. So again, I'm going to give these a really good knockdown. And the reason I like to give them a really good knockdown at this point is because I want to make sure we've got no air pockets in here. When you've got these little air pockets sitting in here, that's where all the heat starts to build up and the condensation builds up in those pockets, and that is then how water gets trapped into these products and possible bacteria grow. So giving them a really good knockdown, make sure that all of those air pockets are out and we're not going to have any issues with bacteria growing. So I'm going to leave these ones now to sit and cool down before we pop the lids on. Okay, so these have been sitting for a few hours on the bench. I have got the air conditioning running today, so these have cooled down quite quickly, and they're at a temperature now where I know I can put the caps on these and we're not going to get any condensation build up and risk getting bacteria growth. So on go our lids, and then I have got a label to go on here too. So I'm just going to grab my little piece of wood here, pop my jar on. I've printed my labels up with my Epsom label printer. Take the backing off, get it all nicely lined up, and on we go. And there we have it. So really pleased with how this one has turned out. Let's get the label on this one, and then I'm going to give you a demonstration on how this one actually works. Okay, so we are into our sink. I'm going to have this tub for me. The other tub is actually going off to my patron who suggested using the fig extract in here. You can see it is still actually quite nice and soft, but is also quite firm as well, and this is how I like my scrubs to be. I really don't like runny ones that when you pick them up they just run off your hands. I like to be able to have a little bit of texture. Once we have got the water running and we introduce water into our scrub, it is going to turn into this milky lotion, and that is what's going to help keep this all nice and soft on the skin. A bit of water there, smells really good, but that sort of milky lotion there is going to help to kind of moisturize, hydrate the skin and help really get that sort of protective barrier over the top there. And you can see it nicely washes off as well. There is nothing worse than using an oil-based scrub and when you finish you've still got oil all over you, but this way with an emulsified scrub you can feel that that oil has put a nice protective barrier over the skin, and it feels really nice and soft and luxurious as well without that really horrible feel. So here is the version of the emulsified sugar scrub using the fig extract. Now, as I said at the beginning of the video, this recipe is available to either purchase outright over on the Pimp My Soap website, or you can come and join us over on Patreon at either the $5 or the $10 levels. And if you are going to do it that way, make sure you're reading the description box to see when this recipe is actually available on each of those levels, as they're only available for a limited time and they won't be sent on to you if you're joining much later than what they're available for. If you are joining at the $5 level, you will get the basic emulsified sugar scrub recipe, which is this one here, and at the end is the tweaked version, which includes the fig extract. Now, if you're joining on the $10 level, on the 21st of February, I will be revealing another tweak to this recipe so that you can turn this into a emulsified coffee scrub. And if you are purchasing the recipe over on the Pimp My Soap webpage, you will also get that tweaked version of this formula as well. So that's a total of 3 recipes for you when you either purchase it or join at the $10 level on Patreon. So I hope you have enjoyed coming along with me as we made the emulsified sugar scrub. If you did, why not leave me a thumbs up and any comments down below in the description, in the comments section. And until the next video comes out, I hope you have a good one, and I will see you then. Bye.